used to come down here when she was little. She was 86 when she passed away. And she used to stay up at Miss Francis's. They had a cabin way up. I think Pence Brothers owns that property now. It was way up there on the hill. You know, you could walk through some fields and stuff to get there now. But the cabin's still there. It's just all laying down. But they wouldn't let the kids play outside. When it got dusk, they had to come in because Miss Francis used to tell them there was something out there that would get them. She'd lock up the animals and everybody had to go in the cabin at dusk. Only one that went out was her husband, you know. But they were all mainly in the cabin at night because something was going to get them. So my mom was kind of always leery that, you know, there was something down here. But my mom kind of had that sixth sense. And her grandmother had it from Mexico. And my grandma practiced, my great-grandma practiced witchcraft. And I'm sure her mother did too. But they were also religious. There's a certain form of it that in Mexico that they're good Catholics, but they still do that. But my mom always had like that sixth sense. And so when she was little, stuff would happen up there. But I can't remember all the stories she would tell us about it because we were young, you know. And then my parents bought property here where this old trailer is. My grandma and grandpa built a cabin there. And it was way up high on pillars because of the floods.
On this property?
Right here, yeah, okay. Like where Adam's ambulance is parked up in there. It was, you know, so tall. My other aunt used to be able to pull her car under there, and she'd set her tent and all that up under there in case it rained or stormed. They were protected, so it was more like a pavilion under the house, under the cabin.
Okay.
But I can remember coming down here one weekend with our grandparents because in the summertime, my grandma, every kid that lived in St. Louis County or St. Louis, Southside St. Louis, my grandma would say, go into the country. And she'd have 30 kids in the back of her truck, all coming down here. And I can remember one night, something was underneath the cabin. My aunt wasn't here, but it was under the cabin. And it was growling, and it sounded like two large animals wrestling, fighting over something. But my grandpa kept telling us kids that it had to be bears. But we had never seen any bears. And what would they be fighting for under there? Yeah. You know, there's nothing under there. I think it was just like a territorial, you know, like. But it seemed like the more people were here, more stuff happened. Because nobody was ever here during the week except in the summer. We'd come down, you know, and spend weeks down here. But something was wrestling under that cabin. I don't know what it was, but I don't think it was bears. You know, looking back at it, I think it was Bigfoot. Two Bigfoots fighting under there. And then my parents there was a cabin over here next door where Shelby's is, by that red shed. And they bought that, so my grandparents just, you know, my mom and dad took their name off the deed, and my grandma and grandpa stayed on there, on that deed. So they had that cabin over here, and we were all here. It was, you know, mom and dad had 6 kids, and then cousins all came, you know, when we'd come down here. Everybody loved the country. And so the first night I remember something happened in that cabin was something was beaten on the front of the cabin, and then something would beat on the back of the cabin. But by the time my dad would be at the front door with the gun, it would start beating on the back door. So my dad couldn't get to, you know, it was faster than my dad could move across 2 rooms. Because you only had the front room and then the kitchen area where it was beaten. So whatever it was fast, and it was beating on that cabin hard.
Do you think it was just one creature or multiple creatures?
I think it was multiple, because how could it be that fast? You know, that quick, that a man's turning back and forth and don't know which way.
It's like they were trying to create confusion. Were the bangs high up?
Yeah, and it was loud. It was loud. Like,
Boom, boom, boom,
we
boom.
were all in bed, and then we were all up, and of course, all of us girls, there was 4 of us girls in there, probably about 6 girls, if you count all the girls. But we were all screaming bloody murder. You know, we didn't know what was out there. We thought somebody was trying to get in the cabin with us. You know, something was going to get in there and kill us, is what we was all thinking, the way they was beating on that cabin. And then, you know, my mom said, because even when it stopped banging, we were all still screaming. You know, well, we were scared. We didn't know if it was going to start back up, if something was going to get in through a window, you know. And then my mom said, quit screaming, quit screaming. Everybody stop, calm down. Look at the dogs. Dogs never woke up. I think they were hypnotized, you know, somehow, because, why wouldn't Great Danes wake up? That were usually very guardful of all of us kids.
Wow, so the dogs were asleep the entire time?
The entire time.
Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that either.
Never woke up, you know, until my mom was like, Duke, Duke. You know, they never woke up.
Yeah, so they were probably hit by infrasound or something.
Something kept them dogs from waking up.
Some sort
And
of
if it was
trance.
humans, this is my thought, if it was humans, those dogs would have woke up. If something wasn't, you know, doing something to their mind, humans can't do nothing to their mind.
Yeah.
Something had them where they weren't going to wake up.
Yeah, and what was your family's thoughts in that moment when they realized the dogs never woke up? Did they realize that in the moment or afterwards?
My mom realized it.
Yeah.
Like, you know, right when the beating quit and us girls were still screaming. You know, my dad still had the gun, you know, because he kept the shotgun right next to his bed. And, because we weren't from around down here.
You guys are coming down from St. Louis, and the area was kind of vacant until you guys came down.
You know, the closest neighbor was on top of that hill. There were none other houses up there yet.
Right.
And so if something happened, nobody was going to hear you. Nobody lived across the creek then. It was a cabin, you know. The Pratts lived further up the hill, but there was no one across the creek.
So back then, there was a lot less people here.
Oh, yeah. The only people that were down here were my family, you know, that came there in the week or the weekends in the summer, you know, so. No, and I can remember my parents talking about it, saying that it had to be some kind of animal.
Right.
You know, but, you know, my dad was on guard after that a little more.
You had that gun ready for the next time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think he had 2 guns.
Yeah.
One in the kitchen and one in the bedroom.
Right.
But, because my dad was a big hunter, and he was in the service. He was in the Army, and he was in the Air Force National Guard. So, you know, he wasn't afraid of anything.
Right.
And if he did, he didn't show it. You know, besides staying around here, you know, there's somebody messing with stuff, you know. That's what he'd say. Somebody's messing with stuff. I want you girls to stay here where I can hear you or see you. And cats. And the next thing I can remember is my mom with the bonfire, with thinking somebody, our parents would go to bed, and we'd all still sit out by the bonfire, you know, goofing off and stuff, aggravating each other. And then Mom told us all to go to bed, and then she thought she'd come out to check to make sure we all went to bed because some of us slept in the cabin and some of us slept in my parents had a big Terry RV, a pull behind RV parked in the yard. So usually the boys all slept in the RV. And she told us all to go to bed. She'd come out to check to make sure and everybody'd listen, and there was someone sitting by the bonfire. She said, I told you to get your butt to bed. Now get your butt to bed. And she was yelling. My mom she wore the pants in the family. And she had no problem about beating your butt. And she threatened that night. And she said, at that time, when she said, get your butt to bed, it stood up. And said she realized right then, that's not one of the kids. It's too tall. He'd have to be a basketball player to be standing up like that. So she said, just kind of backed up, went back in the cabin, locked the door, and told my dad somebody's out there. My dad told her it was probably honey bears. A honey bear, rooting around for food. My mom said, no, it wasn't no bear. It stood up. So my dad went out there, but there was nothing out there when he went out there. But when we come on the weekends, there'd be 20, 30 people here. That's not counting who was at my grandma's. Grandma's cabin was always full. There was always tents in the backyard, and then on Mom and Dad's cabin would be my dad's side of the family all here, and mostly campers. Everybody bring their campers. But there was always a lot of music playing, people swimming, people fishing, people laughing, cooking. We always ate outside, we had 3 picnic tables together, set up together, so it was one big giant long table. Everybody ate at that table. And I honestly believe, I've told Adam this, I think it's like a tribe. They see another tribe, and it attracts them. Like, what's that tribe doing? What are they eating? What are they doing? And I think the smells, the sounds, I think that attracts them because it seemed like when we were having stuff, it was when at night something would happen. Big weekend. Like, I don't know if I've told you the story about my cousin coming late at night and everybody was already in bed and they were getting their bed ready. They had a Ford pickup and had a piece of plywood across the back to make a bed and had a mattress up there. And she was pregnant, big and pregnant, and he was a conservationist. So, he knew animals, in the woods, and he didn't hear or see nothing when they pulled up, but he had his guns in the back of the truck. So he was moving his stuff out of the back of his truck so they'd have room to move around back there to the front, putting his guns behind his seat. And something pushed their tailgate down on their truck real low. Charlotte said it felt like it went all the way to the ground. And she thought Mike had gotten hurt, and he thought she'd gotten hurt. That, they both yelled.
Mm-hmm.
He yelled for her, and she was yelling for him, and they never did see nothing. But Mike said he didn't know of anything that would, do that. And if it was a bear trying to get in there, it would have kept trying to get in there. And most brown bears or sugar bears, they're not aggressive toward people unless you're aggressive toward them. So I don't know anything else that could do that. A human couldn't push that down. It would take a whole group of them, and there's no way that somebody wouldn't see somebody,
Yeah.
You would have to see more than one person running you know, so.
Yeah, I've heard that several times from interviewing people on the channel that whatever it was pushed down the bed of the truck.
Yeah, it didn't bend the tailgate, but it pushed it all the way down.
Yeah.
And he thought Charlotte had fell and hit the tailgate, like fell out of the truck. But it wasn't. It always seemed like somebody was following you. Like, you know, we were teenagers and we'd walk to the bridge and it'd be dark. You know, everywhere we went without flashlights. If somebody had a flashlight, only one person did, and it was usually one of them cheap hit the flashlight while you were, you know, walking to make it work. And it always seemed like somebody was following you in the woods next to you. And whatever it was would stop when you stopped. Because we always like, you hear that? And we'd stop. You know, but you wouldn't see anybody, but you'd always hear that extra step. Like, you'd be looking, but you wouldn't see anybody. And nothing would follow you. No deer is going to follow you. You know, we didn't have any dogs with us. We'd have known that the dog was over there. And it would have been with us, walking by us, not in the woods. I don't know of any other animal that would follow you.
Yeah, and that happened more than once.
Oh, every time you'd walk down to the bridge and back, you know, which we did a lot, you know, because we were teenagers and didn't want to sit here with mom and dad, you know, so. Or we were sneaking beer or, you know, something. Or we'd go to the bridges and we'd go to the big rocks and have our own bonfire down there and stuff like that. But it seemed like somebody was always following you. And it wasn't my mom and dad. They weren't going to walk in them woods. They're like me. I won't walk in them at night because of snakes. You don't never know what you're going to step on. I'm more afraid of snakes than I am a Bigfoot or anything. So, but I don't think they hurt you. I think if maybe in somewhere else where they're more aggressive, but down here I don't know of any that's ever like charged at anybody besides that time it pushed the tailgate down. You know, one time and then when we moved down here, we moved down here. Dad had cancer and he was in remission after his treatments, and they'd only told Dad like he was gonna live 3 or 4 months, and he wanted to move down here, so we moved to the cabin. You know, that's what we moved in, and we didn't have a well yet. We had electric, we didn't have a well or anything, but they built onto the cabin eventually. By the way, Dad lived 10 years after they told him he only had 3 months to live. But they built the house and they kind of put the cabin on the back side. Well, my bedroom was what used to be the kitchen. And it was built up, you know, like the cabin was, so that, because of the water. And I kept telling Dad, somebody's looking in my window. And there was a guy that lived way down the road, way past the bridge. And I said, I think that strange guy's looking in my window at night. So my dad said, well, next time it happens, you know, roll off the bed and crawl in my room. Don't stand up, you know. Just, and I did that. He said, come and get me and I'll go back in there. Well, my dad had his pistol and he went in there and he seen it too. And he shot through the window at it. We didn't find any blood or anything. And I think my dad knew it wasn't a person because the window was too high up off the ground. No way it was a person. They'd had to have been standing on a ladder to look in the window because the window was 8 foot off the ground. You know, the 4 foot that it was built up, and then a window doesn't sit on a house. You've got so much room before the window, probably 4 foot. So it would have had to have been 8 foot tall.
Yeah.
Looking in that window. And it's not like my dad did damage anything on his house. You know, he's very protective over his property and his things, personal items. He wouldn't have. But whatever it was, and I don't think he would have shot at a person.
Yeah.
He might have shot to scare them, but he wouldn't have shot through the window at a person.
Yeah. So at this point, they're figuring out that someone or something is harassing them, and something is
It's
not right.
fixed on that cabin.
Yeah, it keeps coming
Fixed
back.
on the house. Yeah, and there were other incidents. Like my cousin was crippled, had muscular dystrophy, so he didn't have no leg strength, or they didn't work. And once Chris laid down, he was generally laying down for the night. And his bed was over by a window in the bedroom in the cabin. And he kept saying, Uncle Floyd, somebody's looking in my window. And my dad said, Chris, do you know how tall they'd have to be looking in the window directly at you? And Chris kept, my dad's like, and Chris kept saying, Uncle Floyd, there is someone looking in my window. Please help me. Because he couldn't get up and run. He couldn't get up and move. Chris was terrified. My dad got up, and when he turned the light on, whatever it was moved out where you couldn't see it. By then we're all screaming again. Everybody's jumping up, locking their window, so. But Chris was probably in his 20s. So it's not like a little kid saying, Uncle Floyd, there's somebody looking in my window. So by then we all knew. We called it the Momo. The Momo's out there, That's the Momo looking in your window. We all called it the Momo. My mom went out on the screened-in porch one night. My aunt and uncle had their camper out there. They were staying in for the weekend. And my mom seen Bigfoot looking in my aunt and uncle's camper. And she said it was bent over looking in the window. And she called him, she said his whole back looked silver. The way the moon was shining on him and the light, she said he looked silver. And she called him the Silver Man.
Yeah.
My mom seen him a lot.
Oh, wow.
And smelt him a lot.
So she's seen the creature more than once.
Yeah, and smelt him.
Your encounter, or your mom's encounter, is the first time I've heard someone mention that description. Because the Sasquatch that I seen, he was jet black, but on his back he had these two whitish gray stripes going down his back, and it reminded me like of a skunk or a lemur.
Yeah. She said it looked silver on his back.
Yeah.
Not his arms.
But it was black and it had silver on its back?
She said his whole back looked silver.
Yeah, like a silverback gorilla.
With the light shining on him.
Oh, wow.
But she said he was bent over looking in that camper. We were trying to figure out one day about how tall would something have to be bent over looking in a camper window.
How high up was the window, do you think?
Well, like a normal camper, not like that one, because it's taller. Okay, but take like the ambulance.
Still 6 or 7 feet.
That'd be about the height of an older camper, with the crank out windows. Because you figure they're on wheels, and then they're tall enough to stand in.
Probably like 10-foot, 11-foot creature, if not more.
Right.
Hunched over, looking
in the window.
Yeah.
And she said it was bent looking in that window. Wow. So.
Did she describe what the face looked like?
It was its back. She couldn't see its face.
You could just see the back, okay.
When she seen it, she went back in the cabin and shut the door.
Yeah, I don't blame her.
Scared.
Yeah. So it was nighttime, like the moon was shining on its
back?
Yeah. Okay.
She said the way the light was hitting its back, it looked silver. But now up on 72, I had a friend that lived up there. You know where the white church is up on 72? There's a cemetery across from that church.
Mm-hmm.
But they lived right before that church on your left. And she said that they seen it a lot out by their barn.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Sweeney had talked to my dad about it. Their last name was Sweeney. And he had talked to my dad about seeing it. And they raised all their own vegetables in their garden.
Mm-hmm.
And he had talked to my dad about it. You know, of course, they didn't call it Bigfoot. They just said it was Momo out there in everything. So, but, yeah, there was a lot of stuff. Now, me and Tim were at the Catfish Hole, and we seen it. I've seen it. And I didn't say anything. I just kept fishing. I kept watching, you know. And the whole time, Tim kept saying he smelled garbage.
Mm-hmm.
He kept saying, I smell like when a trash truck goes by and you smell all that garbage mixed together.
Yeah.
And garbage juice, that's what you called it, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, do you feel creeped out? And he said, kinda, yeah, I do. And I said, look over there, for it's been there for a half hour. And you could see the arm on the tree, you know, but you couldn't, it never did stand up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but it was still halfway up the tree. And he wanted to leave, and I said, well, it's not bothering us. It's just watching us. Maybe it's trying to see if we're going to catch fish and leave them, or, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or clean your fish and leave the guts and the heads, you know. Because my dad used to do that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He'd take and clean down by the creek and throw the stuff in the creek and say the turtles would eat it.
Yeah. That's why we've been fishing on this trip, just trying to pique their curiosity when they see you pull fish out of the river, if you're cooking them,
Right,
throwing.
so that might have been another thing
Yeah.
why they were attracted when my dad was alive.
Yeah.
Because he'd clean his fish, and he fished every day,
Yeah, you
you
guys are
know.
always catching fish.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
like one of our big hobbies down here, was catching fish. We're on the St. Francis River. I was out there on that big rock behind Adams,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when we lived there. And me and Tim were down there fishing, and I seen something going across the river,
5 of
one after another. And I told Tim, what is that?
them, way up here.
It, the head wasn't shaped like a deer, you know. What is that? It was just like a head and shoulders. And then it got over toward where you couldn't see because of the trees and the crap all hanging over. You couldn't see
Mm-hmm.
like it get out of the water.
Yeah.
But it was like a whole family crossing the river.
Wow.
You
That'd be
know,
awesome to see.
yeah.
You think it was Sasquatch or something else?
They were,
It was not deer.
no, they were pretty fast. I mean,
Were they on 2 legs though, or like?
It had to be. There was no back on them, like nothing behind them.
Right. Okay. Yeah,
No
it sounds like a
tails.
family unit moving across the river
Yeah.
from
Oh,
point A to point B.
they went back and forth a couple of them, and like one or two of them go back and forth until they was all across, and then all.
Yeah, so
Wow.
I really think that was Sasquatch.
Sounds like it.
We just didn't know it at the time. It was like, you know,
We've had, my mom said she had her bedroom window so covered so that she couldn't smell anything standing outside her window, and she couldn't see anything outside her window.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she had a black lab that was highly protective of my mom. you know. And she heard something out there, and she let the dog out, and then she went out and stood on the porch right at the steps. And she said she could smell that smell, and when she noticed the dog was backing up, growling, not, like going forward and being aggressive, like don't come here,
Hmm.
but was backing up, going backwards up the steps. She knew it's out there. And she ran back in the house with the dog. But she said that she was, she could smell it outside, and like she wouldn't pull the curtain back. She
Yeah.
said it was like it wanted her to look. That's how she felt. Like it can't see me because of the thick curtains and drapes. Because she had a shade, she had a set of curtains, she had a set of drapes. So nothing, she couldn't see nothing. Nothing could see in her room.
Mm.
But she said she always felt like it was standing there like testing her. Are you going to look? Maybe it could sense she was right there. Maybe it could sense that. But Mom didn't do a lot of like coming outside at night after my dad passed away. She didn't come outside a whole lot. So she would come and go, but she wouldn't hang out outside. If the kids, when the kids were little, if they were here, they would set up beds on the deck and sleep outside on the deck. But if the kids weren't here, she wouldn't go out there by herself.
Yeah, she'd done experienced enough to know what's out there.
Yeah, and if she smelt something, you know,
That was red flag number one.
yep, she wasn't coming outside at all.
What about Dogman encounters? Has anything like that been seen around here?
Well,
I remember you guys telling me a story about this canine-looking creature with ears.
With your dad down to Catfish Hole.
yeah, my dad said that he's seen a wolf, big black wolf-looking creature on two legs down there.
How? What made him go down there? Remember the baby crying?
Yeah, he said he could hear a baby crying, and he wanted to make sure that somebody hadn't left the kid down there, like, oh, somebody will find it. We're close enough to where those cabins are. And he said he could hear it, and he went down there, and it must have been baiting him to come down there. But my mom said when he hit that back door, he about knocked it down,
Yeah.
trying to get in.
So that was the creature was making the baby crying sounds.
Yeah, there was no baby down there.
So if someone hears a baby crying out in the woods,
Oh,
don't go out
hell
there.
no. Nobody's going to go.
Yeah.
Maybe you and Adam, but
Yeah.
I'm not. He's not. Now, like I said, I'm not afraid of Bigfoot
Mm.
because I feel like it's been here long enough that if it was going to harm anybody in my family, it would have. It would have. It would have. It had opportunity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it sounded exactly like a baby crying. It didn't sound like it was mimicking
Oh no, my
one.
dad thought it was a baby crying.
real
My
baby.
mom thought it was a baby crying.
And you can't help yourself, if there's a
No.
little infant out there that can't defend itself, you're
Uh,
going to go check it out. Because what if it
Especially
really is?
a man that's raised 6 kids.
Uh-huh.
Kids were everything.
So it was like a giant wolf on 2 legs.
2 legs.
Probably.
And
It
he
looked
said
like
it had
it was on steroids.
pointed ears that were straight up.
It was massive too, huh? It had to have been.
And one time they were up there fishing, and way past the little bridge up on those rocks way up there.
Yeah, we were just up there.
And it was getting dark, sun was going down, getting darker and darker. And my mom said, Floyd, because she kept saying, come on, it's going to get dark. Come on, it's going to get dark. Because that's where my mom used to go stay in that little cabin when she was little up in that field way up there, up in that hill. And she didn't like being up there, did she? And she kept telling my dad, come on, come on, come on, come on. And she finally told my dad, I'm going, you know, because I want to get back before the sun goes down. I don't want to be up here. I don't want to be up here. You know, I don't want to walk back in the dark. And she said that she seen something up there that day and that she ran all the way home. And she was scratched up from hitting briars and weeds and stuff coming back because she was running. But yeah, Mom didn't trot around here too much at night. No.
And this is just your history, your experiences.
Hmm.
Your boys have had a lot of experiences out here. Your husband and other people that live around here.
And I've took lots of pictures. There's like paranormal, I think, here. Because like well, we used to get film developed. We didn't take it all on our phones like nowadays. And seems like there were always orbs in the pictures. Like one year, my whole family was sitting outside, and I took pictures, and I bet you there was 30 orbs in there. You know, and they weren't bugs, because why would there be that many big orbs around people?
Now, did you guys have paranormal activity happen in the house other than the cryptids?
My mom did, and I did in the cabin, but not when when that house burnt down, and they got a new house. I didn't have nothing in the new house.
Okay.
But in the cabin, it used to be ice cold in my room. Ice cold all the time. Like my aunts wouldn't sleep in there when they came. One aunt was from Kabul, Missouri, and one aunt was from St. Louis. They wouldn't sleep in there when they came. Yeah, like I'd always offer them my room, you know, to stay in when they were here. And no, they'd rather sleep on the couch than sleep in my room. And one aunt I had, she had, I don't know how to say it. We used to say she was nuts, but no, she just had a gift. You know, she had a gift. And she said that she stayed in my room, and she said someone kept touching her feet when she was in there, like would touch her feet. And she would have to tell them, you can't touch me. You know, don't touch me. You know, she would say, you have to tell them, you know, don't touch me. Because I used to see a man in there in my room, leaning up against the flue or standing next to my bed. One time I even felt someone sit on the bed and say hello, you know, and so there was stuff that happened in that cabin. And I'm sure there's people that could tell you other stories.
Adam was telling me about a story
I
of
wish,
these things jiggling the door handles. Can
yeah.
you tell me about that?
Well, that happened not too long ago.
Really?
One night I was babysitting the kids, and I had the door locked, and Dad was asleep, and the kids were all asleep, and Shelby and them weren't home yet. I had their kids, and I heard the door click, 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 because you pull on it, you know, click, 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 like somebody was trying to open it, and I thought it was them, and I said, in a minute, you know, I'm coming, because I was laying on bed watching TV. I said, I'm coming. I got up, went to the door. I swung it open, you know, just opened it up, thinking they were out there. And I looked, nobody was out there. And I said, where you at? I'm up, you know, thinking they thought I was asleep. And we're just going to wait till in the morning. And I was like, I'm up. And then no one ever answered me. So I shut the door. And I called them and I said, "Where are you at?" Thinking they'd either gone in their house, or they were walking outside somewhere. And they said, "We're just now leaving. We'll be home in about 5 minutes." And I said, "Oh, God." Something tried to open the door, and I thought it was you guys. So that's happened. And then one night, we both heard it. Somebody trying to open we were parked on this side, on the grandma's side. The camper, our RV was parked over there. And something kept jiggling the door handles. Dad would look, I would look, nothing out there.
Sounds like it's the same thing that was around when you were a little kid.
Yeah, it's, I, I think there's something about, like I said, I think, personally, in my own opinion, I think they visualize this family as a tribe. Like they're a tribe. The Indians were a tribe. They say they've been around since the Native Americans used to write about them or draw about them. So I think they are familiar with this family.
Why do you think they're messing with you? Like, what's the goal?
Feel safe.
Curiosity,
Yeah.
get you to come out and look to see a better view of you, or
Yeah, it could be curiosity, entertainment, showing you
right.
who's boss.
Now my mom, she would have stuff on her table and say it came up missing. Like she had, well, at one time she had Polish sausage on the counter defrosted, and she had cabbage and tomatoes on the table. And she went to town and came home and it was gone. So she said, "Someone come in there and stole my damn food." They didn't get an ice box, but they took what I had on the table and on the counter.
Whatever it was came inside.
Yeah. So the back door wasn't locked, which was French doors. And they never stuck very well anyway because they had that, you had to slide the lock down in the floor on the top and on the bottom. So if you pushed hard enough, they came open because the door handle, the lock, or the door what do you call that?
The hatch,
The latch.
The latch.
If you pushed on both doors, it would just come open if those seams weren't locked.
Right.
So something could just push on them and go in. And I said, they didn't take nothing out of the icebox or the cabinets. No, just what I had on the counter and on the table. And a bowl. They took a bowl. She had a bowl on the table that the tomatoes were in.
Okay, so they took the bowl with the tomatoes.
Right.
All right.
Now, if you're a thief and you're coming in to steal food, wouldn't you look in the icebox and take food out of there, or the freezer, or the canned goods, or why would you just take what you can smell sitting out? So
Yeah.
that's when Tim had to go over and put better locks on the back door.
Any other sightings you can think of? Anything major that you forgot to mention?
Well, something hitting the camper hard that night on the side of the camper. We both felt it and heard it, And
Like hard enough to knock pictures off the walls? Like
well,
it hit hard.
everything in there is glued to the walls.
Right. But it hit hard.
It hit hard. And then the next day there was a big handprint on it.
Yeah.
But I've also felt that and heard that. He goes to sleep. By 9:30, he's asleep. He's out. And I'll be awake, 1, 2 in the morning watching TV. I don't rest very good. And I've felt the camper go like that, you know, or heard stuff. But I'm kind of like my mom. I ain't looking.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not looking. Now, if he was up, I'd say, let's go look. You know, and I've asked him that before. Let's go look, and he's told me no.
They kind of bully people. I mean,
Yeah.
they're bullying you guys.
Well, maybe they like that.
Just to walk by and
Maybe they like
shove the trailer or the RV.
or maybe it's because they couldn't see us. Because the shades are pulled.
Yeah.
Here's an example. Last night or yesterday, you heard a little puppy talking, barking down in the woods. Now, what do you think? We're gonna go find that little puppy.
Yeah, probably not. I'm not gonna go look for a puppy. Not in these
Kids
woods.
would.
Yeah, that's true. So possibly they're trying to lure kids out in the woods, women looking for babies.
We heard a little baby, a little puppy barking down there yesterday and last night.
Yeah, because my first instinct would say there's a baby crying, there's somebody hurt, or you know, if I heard somebody whimpering or crying, even if I didn't hear no dog, but if I would have heard it, I would have said we gotta go.
Yeah.
It's like a little puppy yelping.
When we first started this interview, I was hearing some wicked sounds over there.
Yeah,
Same direction we heard them from last night. Did you hear that, Tim?
Yeah.
It didn't sound like a cow or a dog.
No.
That time it was pretty defined. I just didn't want to stop the interview. It's like the show must go on.
No, I've heard that. I've heard sounds before.
That's one thing. You've heard a lot of stuff out here.
And people have said, what is that? My uncle, not too long ago, was saying, what is that? And I said, what? I told him out of that John Wayne movie. It's a muddling cow. And he said, what's a muddling cow? I said, I don't know. I heard it in a John Wayne movie, you know. But that's not a cow.
Tell him about the time that we had the camper park here and what we seen in the woods. When we walked down, you thought you...
Oh, yeah, I made Tim walk down here with me because I could see something over here where you are behind us. I could see.
No, when you said, what is that? What is that? And you said, something walking across the water.
Yeah, and you could see it moving that way. Sorry, I have a stiff back. And you could hear it splashing, walking across that creek. And I think it was like 4 good splashes, you know, going across there. Now, I've heard rocks being thrown, like ting, 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 not big rocks, but little rocks, like ting, 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 and say, you like, that's rocks, that's like pebbles. So it wasn't meaning to hurt us, just meaning to get our attention.
That's what it sounds like. Like they've been trying to get your attention. I guess I should have said bullying. They're just trying to like gauge your reactions
or scare you away.
Scare you, yeah.
You know?
It's hard to say what's going on in their minds. Like, what are they thinking? What are they up to? Have you seen the red eyes?
I have once.
Really?
And it was a couple years ago. And it scared me. I mean, where I said, please God, don't ever let me see that again. The eyes. Because I always associate that with demons. And, you know.
Where did you see it?
Over there on that side of Shelby's trailer.
What happened?
In the weeds.
What were you doing that night? Kind of
going from Shelby's to the RV.
Okay.
And then one night I was in the RV by myself over here, and I could hear growling, and I could felt like something was pushing on the camper. Was that our old camper or the RV?
It was RV.
where I called Shelby, and I never say, come and get me. I'm scared. Come and get me, you know. But I did call Shelby that night and say, come and get me now. And I was highly upset. And he got to the back door and he opened the back door. When I seen that back door open, because they locked their door at night. So I knew if I ran over there, I couldn't get in. When I seen that door swing open, I ran. I didn't even wait for Shelby to get there. You know, I just took off. And Shelby's like, what? I said, there's something over there, Cat. I said, there is something over there behind that camper, you know. But I never said anything to Shelby about seeing the red eyes because he's going to know it now. But I didn't want to scare him and the kids.
Right.
And that's the end. His house, that end of the house is where my mom smelt it and seen it. You know, Mom said she seen it at the end of that road over there looking. You know, just standing there looking toward the house. You know, Mom's seen it way more than anybody. But I think she was more alert than the rest of us. More alert than, like, where we'd walk and we'd say, ew, what's that smell? You know, get the air freshener and start spraying it or looking for the smell. My mom knew exactly what the smell was. And it was outside. You know, none of us knew that. But I didn't want them to be in fear of their kids because I don't think their kids are in any danger. I mean, they're so watchful of them anyway. If they're outside, somebody's outside with them.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they're safe in their house.
Yeah.
You know, but I didn't like that. That bothered me and it scared me. And I asked God, I don't want to see that. Now people say that's Bigfoot. That's what his eyes look like at night. You know, oh, I don't want to see his eyes at night.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't want to see it either. Not the red eyes.
You know, people, like I say, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of it. But like I said, when there was something looking in my window, I was afraid. You know, the unknown part scares you. But if I heard a baby crying down there, I would go down there. Because I'd be afraid that if I didn't go down there might be a real baby down there crying. But yeah, I get scared, but I think he gets more afraid than I do.
I'm more afraid now than I was.
Right. Now I'm really afraid because I got a camp right here.
But I think if I had one of them up close encounters, up close, where it charged me, or I felt like it was being aggressive, I'd be much more afraid. Like, I've watched a lot of stories and documentaries on it, and yeah, some of them people tell stories where if that happened to me, I'd be terrified. My nephew and his wife, with them being down there in Oklahoma camping, and both being military people and being terrified of it. You know, what they call it, Area X, but it was being aggressive. And they were terrified. I mean, he sat up all night long with the gun. You know, terrified that it was going to
Going around the truck.
hurt him
Mm-hmm.
or hurt his wife. You know? So, yeah, I could see where people be terrified. But I think whatever's around here is more curious than anything.
What do
No,
you think they are?
I think there's a half human, half ape species.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're half ape, half giant. Like,
Some sort of hybrid.
yeah, I think they found bones to giants.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's not apes that big. So somewhere in there, they've mixed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Something's leaving a footprint.
right.
Oh,
Something's throwing limbs, knocking on trees, throwing rocks, making hollering noises. When we lived at Adams, every night, anytime we'd go out and sit by the gazebo or in the front yard, and we'd hear the same howling. And then the coyotes would start yelping. But it was the same howl every night. We've heard howling here,
Not this time.
Mm-hmm.
but not like we heard it over there. It was every night.
Yeah, we just go out there just to listen.
But I, I've told Adam and Shelby that they need to talk to the neighbor about going, because I think it's across the creek
Mm-hmm.
where there's less houses, less people, more farmland and woods. And I told them they should talk to the neighbor about going back on the back side of her property, more toward the bottom of the mountain,
Mm-hmm.
and do a search or research over there.
Yeah.
Because I think whatever comes here crosses
Mm-hmm. It's
that
coming
creek.
from over there.
And then when we hear it or see it, it's going back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when me and Tim seen it, and it went across the creek. If it was that way or that way, you know.
I didn't know where it was going to go. I just know I needed to go.
So it was heading back to home. You think over there is
Yeah,
home?
I think, well, there's less people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's more houses on this road that have been built in the last
They're coming here seeking
5
food.
years.
Yeah. They're looking for food over here. Trash cans,
Right.
deer, turkey, little critters,
And they go
small
back
game,
that way.
fish. Yeah. Yeah.
People growing vegetables, people having chicken houses more down that way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know,
And there is deep woods over there.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a mountain with hogs over there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's people going back in there and shooting hogs.
Yeah.
Wild boar, so wild boars, not regular hogs, but. And they're so mean looking, them tusks sticking
Mm-hmm.
out. But I think they live over there.
I think so too. When we hear stuff, it's that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they come over out of curiosity or
By the Mark Twain,
being hunger or
silver
wanting to
mines.
know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where there's food or.
Yeah.
Because there's just more people on this side.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for sharing your experiences.
Oh, you're welcome.
Definitely spooks me to know everything that's happened.
Well, my cousin was camped over here about 5, 6 years ago. She was camped over here. And she was in a pop-up camper. And then my other cousins had tents over there.
Mm-hmm.
And she heard the heavy breathing and the growling and something big being shadowing over her pop-up. And she was terrified. And she's never camped in the backyard. after that. When she came, she camped in the front. And she loved camping in the back. Because they'd have their big bonfire back here. You know, well, when she quit doing that because she was scared, you know, she's in the front, and when they come back here to see the bonfire or whatever, but they got to go back up there to go to bed. You know, so.
Oh yeah, it's spooky. I've heard them whoop. One time when I camped here, it was probably like midnight. They whoop, but they're on that side over there. But either way, it seems like they're following the waterways, or like you said, coming from the deep Mark Twain forests and
Right.
state parks that are around here.
Well, she's got a lot of property over there.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to the bottom of that mountain. You know, like my brother, when he used to deer hunt, he'd go up there on that hill up there. You know, with permission, her permission, he'd go up there and he'd hunt. You know, one year they come back with deer and hogs. So you know there's food up there. So they certainly have the means to survive. And there's no people up there.
I'll be camping here at night, and I hear, it sounds like someone threw a big rock into the creek. Like, you hear the clunk, but you hear rock on rock. I
Trying
hear
to
that a
scare
lot.
you.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a beaver. It doesn't sound like a deer jumped in the water.
No, like I told him when we were up at the bridge with the kids.
Uh-huh.
I said, do you hear that? Listen. Because I was hearing clink, 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 clink.
Rock on rock.
Yeah.
Rock on rock.
Really?
You know, clink, 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 clink. You know, and with my back, I'm in a flare-up, so I can't. So I'm telling him, over that way, over that way. You know. But you can hear it, clink, 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 clink. Just
Rock.
like tapping.
Wow.
You know, but probably get your attention. All the kids were swimming.
Shelby told me a story where I think he was shooting a shotgun, or maybe he saw one. I can't remember exactly how it went, but when he shot the shotgun, this thing tore through the woods and it was screaming like a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Shot up in the air.
well, we was out here one night by the bonfire, and we heard a howl. Made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. I mean, we was just about knocking each other over, getting to the cabin door. And we was explaining to my dad what we heard. And it sounded like it was right there out of the glow of the light where you couldn't see, you know, like the glow of the bonfire where you couldn't see around the edges, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounded like it was right there, not across the creek or in the woods. It sounded like it was right there, like behind us, like right behind us. And my dad said, oh, that's a panther. But I've heard panthers scream, and they sound like a woman being killed. They scream. It sounds like a woman, you know, screaming.
Yeah, they got some wicked sounds too.
And that was more like a howl than
something prehistoric.
a woman screaming. Yeah, it was. Wow.
Yeah, because for sure, like owls, foxes, bobcats, mountain lions, they got some wicked sounds, no doubt. But these
Right.
things, it's like next level.
I mean,
Something
I've heard
different.
the loons, the cranes.
Yeah.
I know what they sound like. You know, I know what a panther sounds like. I've heard a panther scream before. I've heard bobcats. But, you know,
Foxes.
yeah, I've heard foxes.
Yeah, foxes can sound like evil witches, but this was something huge.
It
big.
was, yeah, it was not, and it was right there. It was not a mountain lion or a panther. Yeah, no. It wasn't. And whatever it was dark because we couldn't see it in the dark.
There's so many theories out there. Like, is the land cursed? I know people have found arrowheads around here. You talked about
Yeah, and
your
we've
family's
heard drumming.
history.
I've heard drumming.
Like Native American drumming.
Yeah, and that's like been a thing that's happened for many years, hearing the drumming. But it sounds like Native American drumming. Like you would go to a powwow and you would hear the drumming, you know.
Yeah.
But I
There's
don't
so
know.
many theories. Could be an unknown creature.
And like I
undiscovered.
said, the orbs. you know?
That's been seen out here too, huh? The orbs?
Right.
Okay. Strange crafts in the skies.
Yeah, UFOs.
Uh-huh.
Well, that was one thing we used to do when we were teenagers. We would go down to that low water bridge because there was less trees,
Uh-huh.
lay on the bridge and look for the UFOs.
Okay.
You know,
So you guys are seeing that stuff
we were
back
seeing
then?
them then.
Okay, cool.
You know, my cousin has said he's seen ghost light in the woods. Just a light coming through the woods with no explanation. And he said the next day he's walked where he's seen that light. Like, is it another house I haven't noticed? You know, is there a pole barn or something that light's...
Right, like someone walking in the woods with a
Yeah,
lantern or something.
and he's walked that and has not found where those lights came from.
You've seen that more than once.
Multiple times, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Light in the woods going.
I can definitely see why Adam's really into this and he's trying to figure it out. He's heard stories from your mom and dad, from you guys, his parents, and
I'm sure if my parents or my grandparents, my aunt and uncles
they'd have more stories
were
than what you can
alive,
remember.
they'd have a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Because they probably didn't tell us everything.
Yeah, they probably didn't tell you guys the most spooky
Because they didn't
stuff
want
they've
us up their
experienced.
butts.
That's the reason why she didn't want to tell them.
They didn't want us glued to them.
Yeah.
You know, they wanted us to go play, be kids.
Yeah, they didn't want you guys to be traumatized.
Right. So I'm sure there's stuff
There has to be.
they didn't tell us.
There has to be some serious stuff that they didn't tell you guys.
Right. And
You hear that wood knock?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard
my grandpa
That was well
had,
known.
I mean, it seemed like there were guns. Like my grandpa had a gun by the bed. My dad had a gun by the bed. It seemed like they were aware of something being here. So, and yeah, like we don't tell the little ones stuff that's going to keep them up
Yeah.
or make them afraid to do anything. So,
Who knows what's happened when you kids were asleep too?
right. And stuff my parents, you know, did not tell us for our own good.
By the way, little girl, when you were asleep last night,
Yeah.
a huge creature was looking through
Something
the
was
window.
sticking its hand through the window.
Most likely they
Yeah.
were like, we can't tell the kids. Don't tell the
Right.
kids. You'll scare
Right.
them.
And
Yeah, I'm
this-
sure you've wondered about...
We used to put the fan in the window because there was no air in the cabin. And we'd put the fan in the window, you know, and have that old metal fan vibrating in the window. And at night, my dad would always say, take that fan out of the window. I can't sleep with that racket, you know, or it'll pull in too much wet air. But the window always got closed at night.
Yeah. Close the windows and shut off the fan so I can hear
Right.
something comes up.
Yeah.
That's scary. All right, well, we're losing
All
light,
right,
but
well,
you did an excellent job. And
Thanks,
I appreciate
Miguel.
It. Yeah, now I'm spooked. I'm scared. It's a lot darker here than what it looks like on the camera. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight.
Oh, shit.
If I hear a baby crying, I'm not going out there.